What's going on, everyone? It is Mike from the Hardcover Comic here. Today, I wanted to talk about Final Crisis, one of the most controversial DC events among comic fans, anyway. In the history of a DC comic events, I'm pretty sure. At least that's what I've heard whenever I've read about it online. First, real quick though, I want to mention organicpricebooks.com, the go-to place for collected editions, graphic novels, etc. We've got 2 promo codes. THC2 will get you $2 off your order, and THC Ship It Together will get you 5% off an order of 3 or more books. Check it out. It's an amazing website. You can pre-order, special order, a bunch of options, and a tremendous selection of books to choose from. Now, Final Crisis, man, this video, it's probably my 3rd time recording it. At one point, I had recorded a full video in the old sort of studio area. Lost all the video files for that one. Got a few that were corrupted. Tried again a second time. Those files got corrupted as well. But this 3rd time, I got tired and went back to the old school style here, where you're not going to see me just yet, but once I'm in the new studio, that will be coming back for sure. So just take a look at the dust jacket here. The 10th anniversary edition of the Final Crisis Omnibus. That's how I'll be reviewing the story, is the Omnibus edition. Final Crisis, for those of you that are unaware, as a fan when I was getting into DC Comics, Final Crisis was this daunting challenge, it felt like. I had heard various things online about it, read that it's a very complicated event that doesn't really make sense to a lot of people. A lot of people thought it was unnecessary, it was over the top. And then there are a lot of people that really, really enjoyed it and loved reading it. So back in the day, I picked up the original hardcover, which contained the 8-issue Final Crisis event, along with the two issues for the Superman story in there, with the title I'm forgetting, and the Submit issue as well, all written by Grant Morrison, and I enjoyed it. There were definitely pieces of the puzzle missing, based on my reading experience, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. Final Crisis is an event that I have always enjoyed since I first read it. It was complicated. It felt like this epic story that I just wasn't getting because I didn't know enough about DC. But obviously, that's a tough opinion to have. I was very much into collecting at the time, so finding out more about the DC universe was definitely on the table for me. I can understand people reading this as wanting a cohesive story and an event without needing to be a masterclass librarian of DC Comics and the characters and events within the DC universe, so I get that. But with this omnibus here, you get all the tie-ins as well, so you get to fill in all the puzzle pieces that were missing. Allegedly, in all honesty, I've read this omnibus a couple times now. I've even read Countdown to Final Crisis, which a lot of people loathe. Wasn't that great, wasn't very good at all, but I even read that to see what else I could possibly get from it. And there are great pieces of information here, but truthfully, it still feels like there's this shroud of mystery, and there's little pieces of the puzzle that you need to fill in on your own, figure out on your own. They're not fully explained, they're not fully shown panel by panel. But these events transpire within the storyline of Final Crisis. Final Crisis is, it's a crisis event. These are the big ones. Things are going to change after these events here. And for the most part, they do. They're not as massively shifting as one would think for the most part whenever an event happens. But there are definitely some changes that stick through and keep going within the continuity. Final Crisis was this sort of magnum opus of everything Grant Morrison had been doing at DC Comics. So you do get to, in this omnibus, you get the Batman R.I.P. storyline, which is a great story, involving the Black Hand and the Joker. But you get this sort of culmination of all these various works Grant Morrison had been doing and characters that he had adored and loved, like Batman, like Superman, like the Seven Soldiers of Victory, like all the various other characters that he's worked on. You're getting to see some of the more obscure characters within the DC universe take the spotlight, like Frankenstein, who is fantastic. I love when Grant Morrison writes Frankenstein. But there's a ton going on here, and Essentially, the event is about the murder mystery of a new god. I won't give away more than that, even though this book is over 10 years old, the story is over 10 years old. I won't give away more than that. There is a ton that happens within this event. It really is a page turner, a murder mystery, tons of cliffhangers. You keep wanting to find out what else is happening. You're getting all these obscure characters pulled in that you're not used to seeing, having their powers used in very interesting ways, to essentially avoid Darkseid and the anti-life equation. It's as epic as things can get. I love it. I love it so much. It's such a great event. And having read all the tie-ins, for the most part, a lot of these tie-ins are very lackluster to me. They're still fun stories, self-contained, but they don't really, I don't know, they didn't really add on much to the event for me. You get a little story with some of the Teen Titans being essentially used as gladiators within an arena for Clock King. An interesting story. You get a little familiar with what's happening in the DC universe at the time with the Darkseid Club, but really didn't do much for me. There is a great JLA, I think it was JLA at the time, tie-in. I really loved it. Again, didn't really do much for me in terms of the event, but as a standalone story, it's fantastic. I think it was a Brian Meltzer story. Really, really well done. I enjoyed that thoroughly. And then you get, tie-ins like I always forget what this 2-issue mini is called, but it's so good. It's sort of got a multiversity vibe to it, and Grant Morrison doing the weird stuff he does within the bleed and the multiverse. I really, really liked it. You can see with the binding here, it's pretty rough. I mean, you get a bunch of gutter loss. It's not really an easy book to read. If it were up to me, ideally I would split this up into 2. Which may be something that's done in the future. You get this Legion of Superheroes tie-in, which again, a great self-contained story. I really enjoyed it. Jeff Johns, but I mean, barely does anything for Final Crisis. Truthfully, it barely does anything. It's a footnote, if that, in Final Crisis. So it's very weird. It's an omnibus collecting all the tie-ins. They were technically tie-ins. They were under that banner, but it I don't know. To me, it's weird. They don't really add on much to the story. But that's just me. I personally, if it were up to me, I would get the absolute edition of Final Crisis, just to get that J.G. Jones artwork in absolute size, the Doug Mahnke artwork in absolute size. You can't go wrong with that. That would be that would be my ideal way of collecting this story, because I get enough of this story. I feel like that's how I originally experienced the story and really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. You get a great Spectre question crossover here, so there are some really cool characters getting the spotlight within this omnibus, no doubt. In the back, you get a few extra stories, nothing too crazy, but sort of following the events of Final Crisis and what it led to within the DC universe. Some very interesting and exciting stuff. Not much for bonus content, though. That's about all you get. Let us know what you thought of Final Crisis. We'll take a look at the binding here, show you guys the spine. There's way more of an opening here holding it up like this. When it's laying flat, I mean, truly it just lays completely flat from what I've seen. But either way they tried. It's like 1,600 pages. Can't expect much. It's a massive book. But what did you think of Final Crisis? How do you rank it among the other DC events that you've read? Let us know down in the comment section below. Check out Organic Price Books if you haven't already. Make sure to be sure to use our promo codes to get some discounts. And until next time, as always, you stay classy, Internet.